Hey everybody, and welcome to March, one of the most fickle months in Minnesota, at least weather-wise, where spring and summer are just like kind of at a tug-of-war. And this year, the Twin Cities housing market is experiencing its own tug-of-war. All right, there's a lot going on, there's a lot of uncertainty. I'm gonna get into all of that in a moment. But first, if this is your first time visiting my channel, my name is Jay Troutlowen. I'm a Minneapolis realtor and a bit of a stats nerd. And I try every month to do a deep dive into the Twin Cities housing market and its trends. Now, if you have questions about what I say in this video or about how these trends might affect your plans to buy or sell a home, you can put them in the comments below, or you can call, text, or email me. All right. Hey, it's been a couple of months since I posted a housing market update. Things have been pretty wild here in Minnesota. If you've been reading the news, you probably know that. And honestly, talking about the housing market, it just felt a little bit tone deaf. Right? But we're seeing the beginning of the spring market for real estate, and now it's kind of time to get back to business. February brought us a small but welcome thaw in the housing market. We saw a 10% year-over-year decline in January in the number of new homes listed for sale. Now, that's not really surprising given everything that was going on, but we did see that pick up just a little bit in February, and that's kind of good news. The Twin Cities Metro saw 3,850 new listings hit the market last month, and that's about the same as February 2025. So we kind of picked up from that 10% drop that we saw in January. Although all of those gains came from an increase in existing home listings. New construction, new listings dropped by 23% in February compared with February of last year. Now, that really shouldn't surprise anybody. The home building industry has been hit hard both by tariffs and by the federal immigration crackdown here in Minnesota and elsewhere. The industry relies pretty heavily on immigrant labor, and many of those folks are still afraid to come to work. One large Minneapolis home builder told CNN last month that agents had been targeting his building sites. I think most of us would probably take COVID over this, the home builder told CNN. He didn't want his name used for obvious reasons. He said, "This is a misery for everybody in the housing industry." I can't say he's wrong. It's anybody's guess what spring is going to bring on that front. We could see more ICE rates, or we could see something approaching a return to normal. But either way, I think we can expect a slowdown in new construction and an increase in new construction home prices. So despite the drop in new construction home listings, the total inventory of homes for sale did actually go up in February by 3.2% compared to last year. Now, I wouldn't get too excited about that though. With new listings holding steady, growth in total inventory of homes for sale can often signal a slowdown in the buyer market. And we're seeing that in the lower and middle price points for sure. So the total number of homes for sale priced under $300,000 grew by 10% year over year in February. And new listings in that bracket fell by 2.6%, sorry. So there are fewer homes coming to market and more homes staying on a market. There was a similar but sort of less pronounced pattern in the $300,000 to $500,000 new price bracket. New listings there fell about 1% and inventory grew by about 4%. Now, we saw the opposite happen in the $500,000 to $800,000 price bracket and the over $800,000 price bracket. In that case, the number of new listings grew and inventory shrank. So the most likely reason for this trend, which has been pretty consistent over the past few months and really even the last couple of years, is that middle and low income home buyers are more impacted by the slowing economy. It's another indication of that is really the foreclosure, short sale, and lender mediated home sales in those price brackets are also up year over year. The numbers aren't huge, but they are trending upward. We also saw a decrease in both pending and closed sales in February compared to the previous years, so buyers were either not looking or not buying. And I mean, it was a little hard to conduct regular, normal, everyday business in January and February here in the Twin Cities. Can you imagine going out to look for new homes in the middle of ICE raids? It was kind of crazy. So the upshot of all this is if you're planning to list your home for sale this spring, you want to make sure that you're pricing your home correctly to ensure it sells quickly and to make sure it doesn't just sit on the market and rack up days. All of that said, the market conditions in the metro are still favoring sellers. The supply of homes for sale held steady at 2 months, and that's still strong seller territory. If you remember from previous videos, what would be considered a balanced market would have been between 4 and 6 months of supply. We're at 2. We haven't seen a balanced market in the Twin Cities for more than a decade though. The last time supply even hit 3 months was in July of 2016. So even when we get kind of close to a balanced market, people start freaking out and thinking that the market is, having a big swing, when really it's just trying to balance itself. We could use a little balanced market. Given everything, home sellers are still getting 98% of their asking price in February, and that's pretty typical for winter. We have seen this month the little bit of offshoots of a seller market and seen some homes going into multiple offers. Homes that are priced correctly are still selling pretty quickly. So in terms of home prices, we're also still seeing a fairly strong market. The median sale price was up 2.6% compared to the same month last year. It was $390,000. Now, the caveat here is that median sales price hasn't changed since October of last year. Home prices, which have been increasing steadily for years, have been stagnant for 5 months. I'm not really concerned about that though, because we do see this pattern sometimes in the winter, because Minnesota has a seasonal real estate market and things can get pretty quiet in the winter, and they were even more quiet this year. The average home sale price also rose compared to last February. It was up 4.7% to $477,000. So what does all this mean if you're thinking about buying or selling a home this year? I gotta be real honest here. It's kind of hard to know when so many bigger issues are impacting the economy and the housing market. We have tariffs, we have labor shortages, and now we have a war with Iran. We are seeing prices rise for nearly everything, but we're also seeing demand kind of start to drop off, especially in that lower half of the housing market. And that could really negate any kind of price increase. And then we have interest rates. Interest rates have been kind of holding steady at or above 6% now since November of 2024. And honestly, the Federal Reserve isn't likely to make a move right now given all of the instability in the economy. For home sellers, I'd say pricing correctly for the market continues to be the most important factor for you, especially if you're listing a home at $500,000 or under. For home buyers who are looking for homes under $500,000, inventory has been growing, but with the number of new listings shrinking in February, that trend may not continue. What you can expect is a competitive market out there this spring. If you're planning to buy a new construction home, I think you can expect a limited supply, longer building times, and probably higher prices as the industry comes to grip with a shrinking labor force. So that's what I have for you this month. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next month.